Number 10, Justin Timberlake. One of the most discussed sections of The Woman in Me, a memoir by Britney Spears, is of course a revelation on what really happened while she was dating her Mickey Mouse Club co-star Justin Timberlake. After meeting JT in the clubhouse, the two sparked a romantic connection, and their connection was strong, but unfortunately Britney had to make a terrible decision in the year 2000 when she found out she was pregnant, and at first she was very excited about the whole thing because she wanted to be a parent. In her book she revealed that she had planned on starting a family with Justin, but I guess it was just going to be a little bit earlier than she expected. Well, it turns out Justin, not so excited, and told her that they were both too young to start a family, continuing to remind her that their careers would also need to be put on pause. This revelation may be part of the reason that Justin reportedly was so nervous leading up to the book's release, and since the book's release, he's had to turn off his Instagram notifications because, hey, he's terrible and people want to let him know. Britney revealed that if the decision had solely been left to her, she would have gone through with the pregnancy, but she decided to go the opposite route instead. She claims that she only did this because Justin clearly didn't want to be the dad, and in the book she said that looking back, it was one of the most agonizing things she had ever experienced in her life. Number 9, Jamie Foxx. So this is one of the more recent secrets that's been revealed, so to speak. So far, this is just an allegation, but a woman is suing Jamie Foxx for alleged physical mistreatment at a rooftop restaurant. The allegations are being backed up by two eyewitnesses, a friend of the victim, and a security guard who saw the whole thing go down and let it happen. According to the unnamed woman, she spotted Jamie at a restaurant around 11 p.m. and after a couple of hours decided to ask him for a picture. Jamie was apparently under the influence, and according to the accuser, he became very handsy as the night progressed. He said yes to the picture and then apparently said that the woman had a model's body and smelled good. Then there are some darker and honestly pretty disturbing details that I can't go into in this channel, but if they're true, something tells me Jamie's career may be done. Truly just dark stuff. The court case is being brought forward as the Survivors Act is about to be implemented in the US. This act allows victims of physical offenses to bring civil cases to court after the statute of limitations has expired. The statute means that after a certain amount of time has passed, the victim can no longer file criminal charges. However, the new act means that civil cases are good to go. So we will see what happens to Jamie in the coming weeks. Number 8. Lizzo. Lizzo may have been a public advocate for body positivity, but as part of the lawsuit being brought up against her, it looks like all that positivity may have just been an act that she was putting on to make herself more universally loved. Now, I'm not a small man. In fact, I have what many call a dad bod, and I'm very cool with it. So I'm not dismissing the notion that we should love and respect ourselves, but come on, she made it a massive part of her personality on camera when it sounds like the only body she actually cared about was her own. According to her dancers, Lizzo regularly shames her team and makes them feel that they are too large or gaining weight, with several dancers confirming these claims. One of the dancers, Crystal Davies, who is part of this lawsuit, was fired for secretly recording a meeting between herself and Lizzo. The meeting was about the dancer's performance on stage recently and her apparently disliking the weight that she had been gaining, claiming that she wasn't committing to the role. She was also bringing her dancers to weird places and making them do weird things. Lizzo was at a club in Amsterdam's red light district when she coerced, aka forced, a dancer to touch a woman's bare chest despite saying no several times. She also made them eat bananas from some no-no zones. Again, nobody's idea of fun. Currently, there is still a court case up in the air and no one knows what will happen, but so far Lizzo is maintaining that she did nothing and will prove her innocence. Number 7, Russell Brand. Even before the controversy surrounding Russell Brand came up this year, this dude was unwelcome everywhere. Royal events, awards shows, kids' birthday parties, who knows? For anyone who doesn't know, I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you, but Russell Brand is a terrible person. The man known best as a comedian, a bringer of joy, was secretly manipulative, aggressive, and at times violent with his ex-partners. Following in the news that a documentary about his life and career was set to release on BBC's Channel 4, several complaints got filed against him, alleging mistreatment during their time together. The allegations were actually reinforced by Russell's ex, Katy Perry, who they dated for quite some time, and she came to learn that Russell was short-tempered, opinionated, and stubborn. Russell's career was canceled, and he's currently awaiting a trial. Number 6, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors is currently the man behind Kang the Conqueror in the MCU. He was written as an important person in that franchise, being a villain in a couple of movies and recently a villain in the Loki TV show. Unfortunately for Jonathan Majors, an ex has come forward and alleged that Jonathan was physically violent towards her while they were together. Since March of this year, Majors and his team had been adamant that the situation was blown out of proportions and that there really is nothing nothing to be upset about, which is always a fun thing to say to people during these situations. In fact, in June, Majors filed his own cross-complaint accusing his accuser. The prosecutors refuted these claims and told him they had no plans on prosecuting Grace Jabari, who was the woman who accused him. Majors has been dropped from his agency, and so far his role on TV and film is pretty up in the air. I mean, his character Kang may even be kicked out of the MCU and replaced by Doctor Doom, so let's see what happens as the year progresses. Number 5, Jada Pinkett Smith. Cheating rumors and dating scandals followed Jada and Will throughout their entire relationship. Since day one, people were convinced that they were in an open relationship or had just been straight up cheating on each other. Turns out that those rumors were kind of true, because ahead of the release of her book Worthy, Jada sat down with People magazine and every other news outlet to share some inside info. The most revealing one was that herself and Will Smith were actually separated for 7 years. Of course, that's not all though. Jada is slowly ruining that guy's life and then some. When Jada revealed the truth about her separation from Will, she claimed that by the time they reached 2016, they just became exhausted with each other. The news of their separation was a mild shock at best, because Super Sleuth fans claimed that they had proof Will and Jada were separated a long time ago. Some of the clips that were submitted as evidence of Will and Jada just prove it, because Will and Jada was on Red Table Talk and he looks drained. He just looks like a man dealing with so much mentally speaking. In her conversation with Will, she literally says that herself and Will had basically broken up, but instead of just outright admitting the information, she decided to hold on to it until the release of her book. A lot of Jada fans commented on the resurfaced clips, and we can all agree just Will is having a rough time, and I just feel for this guy at this point. I could go on and on about how terrible Jada Pinkett Smith is, but I've only got a couple of minutes and I already wrote a lot of lists about why she's bad, so go check them out. Number 4, Mark Wahlberg. Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids cartoon, the crew had a small following and garnered quite a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted, picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man, Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He had a successful acting career that's recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks great at 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark Wahlberg. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was 13. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested at the age of 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of hallucinogens when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time confirmed that Mark did have a bit of a racial bias with his upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who, wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which made contact and knocked one of them unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of a 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life forever. So far, that promise seems to be kept, and I can personally confirm that he's a very polite and patient person, because he watched a movie at a theater I used to work at. He travels with like 5 people at all times. It's a little intimidating. Number 3, Margot Robbie. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she may be a psycho. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank she pulled on an old babysitter. It involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for See, they bleep it out. Apparently, Margot has just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just was not as cool as Talia, her old babysitter, so she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good and grabbed ketchup, a stabby-jabby device, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. The old I'm kinda dead routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just jogged out the door. She was gone. She traumatized the woman, who quit, and Margot successfully got her old babysitter back. But that's very messed up, and Margot was so young when she did that. That is so dark, a dark place for someone's mind to go that early on. Was she secretly a little crazy this whole time? Might explain why she is the best Harley Quinn we've ever seen on screen. Number 2, Tim Allen. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear, the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. And while he may have played a family man on TV, a lot of fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some pretty bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a couple of bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in the Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, there was a guy from the government just next to his car like, oh, 650, all right, well, if you got 650, then you're going to jail. However, that sentence was never served, and it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state one, so he was able to ignore that new policy. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. So think about this entire entry and tell me that wouldn't be a great movie. Number 1, Danny Matheson. Danny Matheson was that 70s show's popular boy, and it helped launch several careers, including Mila Kunis, Ashton Kutcher, and of course himself. Danny was also on this show, and it turns out that the allegations against him date back to 2004 and were reported in 2004. Danny was still on the show when an investigation took place. 4 women reported that he had mistreated them physically, prompting local law enforcement to halt production of that 70s show and bring Danny in for questioning. The investigation brought little to no actual evidence to the table because it was just that time, so Danny was let go and the whole thing was forgotten about. But that means that Ashton and Mila watched this dude shut down their project and still said, hey, he's a great guy. When the charges come up again 15 years later, people are still sticking to his side that he was friends with, but it turns out that he was an actual menace and a horrible person, and he's gonna go to jail. Number 10, Tom Cruise's cookie dough. Tom Cruise is known to have a bit of a bad temper. According to Leah Remini, Tom once lashed out at his assistants after he couldn't find a tube of cookie dough when Leah and her husband Angelo were over for a visit. She claims that Tom asked his assistants to prep the cookie dough, and when he walked into the kitchen a few minutes later to find no cookie dough waiting for him, he flipped. Tom went off at his flustered assistant, grabbing a science book, holding it above his head, and telling the assistant, L. Ron Hubbard is here, Dave and I are here, and you are down here. According to Leah, the assistant had the fear of God put inside of them because they knew what was about to happen. Remini diffused the situation by casually pointing out that the cookie dough was behind Tom on the counter the entire time. Tom is known for his temper. A former assistant revealed that when Tom turned 19, he threw a book at her head because the book was a bunch of Teen Beat style articles written about him when he considered himself an adult. The search associated with Tom has claimed that this never happened and is just a story for Leah's book, but the assistants and Leah's husband were eyewitnesses, so nice try, science guy. Number 9, bad parents. A large chunk of Leah Remini's book is dedicated to exposing Tom Cruise and his role in the scientific community. Apart from cookie dough, freakouts, and secret meetings, she mentions how terrible of a parent he really was. Tom and his ex Katie had their marriage after their daughter Suri was born, and in her book she speaks of their wedding day, where she discovered baby Suri on a tile floor surrounded by 3 women, including Tom's sister and his assistant. She was crying very loudly, and Leah claims that the women were speaking to her as if they were trying to calm down an angry and annoyed adult. Neither Katie nor Tom were anywhere to be seen when this happened, leaving a lot of people to question if Tom is even a good dad. We know he isn't these days, at least according to online sources and his family, but seems like Tom hasn't seen Suri in years. Number 8, Sharon Osbourne. Sharon and Leah had a very bad public feud a few years back, but according to Leah, things are okay now. The two were co-hosts on the show The Talk, but Leah was let go following the very first season in 2011. At the time, Leah blamed Sharon Osbourne for the firing as they had apparently had an altercation off camera. Leah called Sharon out for supposedly using racist language when speaking in reference to a crew member, but Sharon claims that never happened. Leah said that at the time she believed Sharon was her friend, and because of that, Tidal expected a lot from the co-host. The story was backed up by several co-hosts and more details were released. She had apparently been using some very poor words when speaking about her co-hosts Julie Chen and Sarah Gilbert. I will not repeat what she said because it is so rude and vile and just no. Leah also revealed that at times Sharon would even use slurs aimed at her that were usually associated with Italian people. When Remini would not support Sharon, she used the power behind the scenes to take Remini out for good. Number 7, John Travolta. Tom Cruise is not the only famous celebrity involved in weird science. Danny Zuko himself is a man who loves to read. In fact, he will tell you to do the same thing if you ask him why he's involved with the Church of Science. That's it, no explanation or what is in the book he's recommending, just go find one and read one. Read a book! I picked Harry Potter. John is well known to have confirmed his involvement with the crew, but there is specifically one really unsettling thing about him, and is that he seems like an okay guy, but as I said, every time someone asks him about what it means, he tells people to educate themselves and read a book. I found so many examples of celebrities all giving the exact same answer when they're asked this question, and it's horrifying. There is no straight answer, it's very weird, they tell you to go to a library, that's pretty sus. Number 6, Jada Pinkett Smith. For those who don't know, Jada lives in a world of science, but I can't even talk about what that means. Oh wait, you'll know what it means. Leah Remini, who you might know from King of Queens or Old School or just all the movies that she's in, is very outspoken, especially against Jada. The rumors that Will and Jada were big into science was something that Leah mentions in her book, Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Weird Science, and she brought it up again when speaking to the Daily Beast in 2017. She claims to know for certain that Jada was involved for a long time. She had seen Will once in a blue moon, however, she did spot Jada attending several events at the Celebrity Center in Hollywood. When Leah claimed to have knowledge of this, Jada clapped back on Twitter, naming all of the houses of worship that she's visited without being an actual member of them. A year later, they appeared on Red Table Talk together to hash things out, and after the interview, Jada gushed about how they connected in the interview and said that they were two broken little babies inside of them that just were abandoned by their parents. And Leah was like, man, that lady needs help. Number 5, Giovanni Ribisi. Giovanni Ribisi, best known for his more comedic roles in movies like Ted, is another celebrity that is openly linked to the world of science, being another celebrity that encourages people to read a book and educate themselves instead of him having to explain the unexplainable. Gio actually used to practice Scientology alongside his co-star from My Name is Earl, Jason Lee, aka Earl Hickey, who you will know from plenty of great movies. Himself and Leah had butted heads for years, but back in 2016, the release of her book prompted an even greater hatred. These two have been at each other's throats ever since. Metaphorically speaking, it would be pretty weird if every time you went outside there was just Leah Remini and Giovanni Ribisi brawling on the streets. You can sell tickets to that. Gio is not the most famous person in this book to be exposed, but he is mentioned, so he counts. Number 4, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Maggie and Leah used to be very close when Leah was a former member of the Weird Science, but she has had a massive falling out with the group ever since. The controversy led to several altercations and rifts in friendships. Following her exit from the church, Maggie and Leah continued to argue and battle with each other as to what the superior decision was. The better place to be for Leah was behind a desk typing her feelings into a book. I've never read this book, so if you have, good for you. I barely had enough mental capacity to read the articles about this lady, let alone her actual words and thoughts. Maggie is just another celebrity that wishes Leah would stop telling so-called lies and misleading the public into thinking that the group are a bunch of famous nuts who play hide and seek together from time to time. Guys, Leah didn't make you look like that. You made you look like that. Number 3, Elizabeth Moss. Star of the popular series Handmaid's Tale, is another celebrity involved in the church, and this video is quite literally just a list of people involved in weird science that Leah Remini either has a beef with or has some kind of feud. Elizabeth and Leah have actually only crossed paths a handful of times, but each seems to be worse than the last. Leah is blasted by any and all celebrities linked to weird science, with Elizabeth just being one of the more shy of the bunch. Herself and Leah have been fairly reserved in their feud, with the only knowledge of its existence coming from Leah herself. A few years back, Elizabeth shared some of her views on the science side of things, and her words caused Leah to label the crew as a cult, and that their sole goal was to grow their numbers. Leah tore Elizabeth and her statements apart, causing a back and forth that lasts to this day. The argument is literally just the two going back and forth, claiming that the other is the reason for their annoyance. We've all been there. Number 2, Kirstie Alley. If there has ever been a difficult clip to watch on this list, this is the one. Leah Remini writes a lot about the celebrities she knows to be involved with the group, including Kirstie Alley. Kirstie is best known for her role on Cheers and in movies like It Takes Two. But if you are a fan of cringy clips, you might know her best from her season on Celebrity Big Brother. During her time on that show, she was asked about her beliefs a few times, but the best clip comes from her interaction with fellow castmate from that season, Rodrigo Alves. She tells her that the best way to educate herself is to read a book. Hey, I already said that before. But unlike TV hosts and interviewers in the past, she pushed further, telling Kirstie that she is right there, ready to go, so you could just explain what would be in the book, right? To which Christy said no. Rodrigo had her own set of issues on that season, but this moment really stuck into the minds of those who witnessed it. Like, why not? Why do I have to go read a whole book that you have already read? That'd be like going to a doctor's office and them being like, oh, I know what's wrong with you, but you have to read my medical school journals to figure it out. And at number 1, Dancing with the Stars. A few years back, Leah was asked to be a guest dancer on Dancing with the Stars, and as the season progressed, more and more backlash came up, mainly from the science community voicing their annoyance that she was fine to be on a show and dance her heart out, but other active and vocal members like Tom Cruise and John Travolta or anyone else who was on this list are questioned at every turn. Leah responded to the hate by informing people that the show that she was on had nothing to do with her views and was simply something fun that she wanted to participate in, and she was asked to do it. So this might have been part of the reason that she left the group for good, and every time she tried to exist outside of it, she was just questioned and brought right back in. Number 10, Shia LaBeouf. When I was introduced to Shia, I was 6 and he was the lead of a Disney show called The Even Stevens. I know, I'm a child. I loved this show and thought that Louis Stevens was the wildest guy around, and it turns out that he is wild, but most of the time it's not in a great way. As the years went by, Shia was casted as a leading man in movies like Holes and Fury. But unfortunately for Shia, growing up that young in Hollywood made it difficult for him to, grow up properly. He got caught up in a lot of violent altercations between members of the public, theater goers, and even ex-girlfriends. He was arrested and released back into the wild several times, which might have played a factor in Hollywood refusing to cast him in anything that he hasn't put money up for. He was in a ton of really, loved movies even after all this stuff went down, but unfortunately the damage was already done. If you haven't noticed, the last really big movie that he was in was Fury back in 2014, but since then he's carved a nice career for himself starring in lower budget indie movies like Peanut Butter Falcon and Padre Pio. His string of violent outbursts and lewd behavior is not something he's unaware of, because when speaking to John Bernthal on his Real Ones podcast, he spoke in lengthy detail about every terrible thing that he had done, and he just owned up to all of them. It was like a 1-hour confession. He was able to patch things up with a lot of people in his life, not everybody, but a lot of them, and so far it seems that it is not enough for Hollywood to consider him for any high-profile projects, but who knows what will happen. Number 9, Edward Norton. It's universally known that Edward Norton was almost the Hulk full-time had it not been for money and his opinion on sequels. He absolutely hates sequels. It turns out that the whole situation may have been part of the reason that you see him appear in so few films. Edward is a wonderful actor, and if you are a fan of Wes Anderson, you may have noticed that he has been in a lot of his movies, 5 of them to be exact. Unfortunately for Edward, that's basically all he's been doing lately. His most recent role outside of the world of Wes Anderson was in 2022's mystery thriller Glass Onion, but again, between A and B, it was only Wes. Now it turns out it may have something to do with his personality. Now Edward seems like a wonderful dude. I can't tell you where it is, but he actually has a cottage in a town near where I grew up, and my family and I met him at a farmer's market when I was like 5. This man was buying corn and homemade knickknacks during his time off, so good dude. However, when it comes to sequels, as I said, that is a no-go. Considering how good the movies he's been in are, it's no surprise that studios aren't willing to cast someone who would never do another movie in that universe. It's probably why he works well with Wes Anderson. He's appeared in multiple movies, but he's a different character in each of them, and they are vastly different plots. While Hollywood may not want to work with him, at least someone does. Number 8, Madonna. For those of you who may not know, Madonna actually did have a brief acting career back in the day, appearing in a movie directed by her husband at one point and a few others since. She was actually the cause of some on-set trouble that led to one of her co-stars quitting a project just because she was involved. Deborah Winger was set to be in the film A League of Their Own, but she dropped out when she heard that Madonna would be her co-star, and it was apparently due to Madonna's poor performance and box office returns from her first few films. She was also apparently a little difficult to work with on set and was known for forgetting her lines from time to time. Eventually, she decided to stick to music, and that was a great choice because Madonna made some incredible music that we still love to dance to this day. Number 7, Ezra Miller. What is there to say about Ezra Miller? They had the chance for a great career after starring in several wonderful movies. My personal favorite was The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but their career only went up and reached a stellar point when Ezra was casted to play Barry Allen, aka The Flash, in the DC universe. They actually did a pretty decent job playing this character, which is why it was so alarming for fans when their names started popping up in the news left and right, and usually in association association with a crime. Ezra was arrested several times in different places around the world for various crimes ranging from breaking and entering to straight up brawls. Eventually they were caught, and a lot of information from people on the set of The Flash came forward. Apparently, Ezra had been appearing on set in strange clothes, sometimes even wearing a robe kind of like Harry Potter. They would behave erratically and made lewd comments that I can't repeat online. Concerns were growing as time went on. Following the multiple arrests, the stories were confirmed and Ezra's career has halted. Considering DC was recently purchased by James Gunn, we will more than likely never see Ezra as the Flash ever again. Number 6, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's downward spiral was very public and is the main reason he was fired from several shows, recasted on others, and had movies canceled on him before they were even greenlit. Charlie's of course one of the main characters from the show 2.5 Men, as well as several comedy and action films from the 80s and 90s, but around the mid-2000s he was appearing more and more disheveled in public. He always looked drained of energy, or he had way too much. He was being rude to people, which wasn't uncommon for Charlie, and on top of it all, he told the world he was winning during an interview where he was clearly on no snow. He can't sit still, his eyes are glazed over, and he's just speaking with the speed of an auctioneer. Eventually, Charlie was fired from 2.5 Men and replaced by Ashton Kutcher, and these days you can find Charlie. Honestly, I'm not sure where you can find Charlie. Someone go look for that guy. See if he's okay. Number 5, Michael Myers. Yeah, baby. Very shagadelic. Well, not really. Despite being a Canadian treasure and the man behind some comedy cult classics like Austin Powers and Wayne's World and so many more, this man is just apparently a menace to work with. According to his Cat in the Hat co-star, Amy Hill, Mike has handlers dress his entire trailer and work area so that no one could see him, having a giant tent covering the entire space. Hey, that's kind of fair though. If I was in the cat suit with a bum crack like that, I would want to hide it too. This reputation as a difficult Donnie might have something to do with Hollywood basically blacklisting him from appearing as a lead in anything until his recent show The Pentaveret came out on Netflix. It's a great show, where he was forced to play half of the cast because he couldn't get a lot of people to be on it. Maybe it has something to do with the Love Guru. Who knows? Maybe it has something to do with his bad reputation. What we do know is that nobody seems to be up for working with Mike, which really sucks because, hey, we all know Austin Powers 4 is going to be awesome. Number 4, William Shatner. This is for all of you Trekkies out there. Live long and prosper. That's all I got. I'm not as geeky as you might think, but I am well aware of this long-standing feud between William Shatner and his Star Trek co-star George Takei. This feud lasted for like 50 years, and according to George, it boils down to William being a prima donna attention hog the entire time that they were on set. Over the years, George and his fellow crew have been vocal about their opinions on their fellow cast and crew. Most of the time, they have nothing but nice things to say about each other and have made lifelong friends from the project, but there is one person that everyone agrees was not a fun man to work with. William Shatner was the bane of people's existence on set. He loved being the center of attention and was very self-involved. He wanted everyone to know who he was. William actually responded to these claims, telling people that he believed his Star Trek co-stars were just damaging his good name for publicity's sake. But why would people do that when they've barely acted in 30 plus years? Suddenly want to bash you for fame and glory? That makes sense. I don't know if anyone hasn't noticed, William Shatner hasn't done much other than, petition to go to space for real, and the only thing that he has done acting-wise was host a show by himself, so there you go. Number 3, Jared Leto. Jared Leto's been a problematic figure in the world of Hollywood basically the entire time he's been in it, after first gaining notoriety for portraying the character Lane Dixon alongside Dennis Quaid and Danny Glover. Leto quickly began building up his acting repertoire and roles with movies like Mr. Nobody, Girl Interrupted, and even taking his turn as the Joker in 2016. Yes, the Suicide Squad landed him a spot on this list and every list from now on involving worst anything. While playing the iconic Batman villain, Leto purposely distanced himself from his fellow actors on set, and reports are that he sent castmates used adult toys, live animals, all fun kind of stuff. At one point during filming, Captain Boomerang actor Jai Courtney even found a live snake in his trailer following a long day. The snake wasn't venomous, but I think we can all agree that it's horrifying and you shouldn't do that to a person. In recent years, he has claimed that any gifts sent to his castmates were sent with the intent of joy and excitement, and they were received with such, but I don't know. Exposing your fellow actors to body fluids and actual snakes doesn't sound great. Since his time on set, he has become less and less involved with his fellow cast, with the producers of Haunted Mansion deciding to let Jared film his scenes separately from everyone, leaving Owen Wilson and Lakeith Stanfield on their own. Good idea. Number 2, Jennifer Lopez. The 2020 Super Bowl saw two pop icons take the stage and make the night about them and not about football. Shakira and Jennifer Lopez appeared together and they absolutely slayed. Their performance has gone down in history as one of the most memorable and shimmy-filled nights in the NFL. Unfortunately, Jennifer did not want to share the stage. Following the show as a part of her Netflix documentary Halftime, it was revealed that she was extremely annoyed at the NFL for forcing her to share the stage when she felt strong enough on her own, literally calling it the worst idea in the world. Her main concern was the fact that herself and Shakira were meant to occupy and share the same amount of stage time as a normal solo act rather than doubling it like she assumed that they would do. Solo artists are normally given between 12 and 16 minutes of stage time. Most artists use that time to do a mashup of their more popular songs, usually making a memorable and unique show. In the documentary, a clip revealed that Jennifer actually yelled at her music director, complaining that she had 6 effing minutes and 30 seconds per song. That's not enough. The worst idea is not putting multiple people on the stage, okay? One of the most recent performances at the Super Bowl saw 6 major artists share 12 minutes. Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick Lamar were able to make it work and work super well. But Jennifer Lopez couldn't even fathom the 6 minutes that she had to perform with Shakira. Yeah, no one wants to work with that woman. Number 1, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey may echo in your skull around this time of year, but according to most, you should really keep that space in your head reserved for someone else's song, maybe Michael Bublé. Mariah has been known to be a bit of a diva over the years, apparently making outlandish requests and taking part in some truly strange moments. For instance, when giving birth to her children, Mariah had the doctors play a live version of her song Fantasy, so that her voice was the first thing they heard into this world. Unfortunately, the playlist was on shuffle and they were instead born to The Bird Is the Word. No, I'm just kidding, that would be fantastic though and would have scarred them for life. She's walked out of presidential events because she wasn't the center of attention. She makes people speak to her via a whiteboard the night before performance to preserve her vocal cords, and literally makes someone roll out a physical red carpet for her when she walks out of vehicles at events. Like the lady from Guardians of the Galaxy, it's literally her job to just be like, just all day. Needless to say, she is currently classified as a diva, but needs to be classified as canceled, because all I want for Christmas is a new song, for the love of God. Number 10. Will Smith. Now, if it was just the whole Oscars thing that tainted his image, I would leave him alone and just ignore the situation. But this man is humiliated on almost a daily basis now, thanks to his wife, partner thingy, Jada Pinkett Smith. This woman shares something new about her relationship every other day of the week. She dominated the front page media for a solid 4 or 5 months out of this year alone. I'll be honest, it went by very fast, so I just don't remember much. What I do remember is the photos of Will Smith just looking defeated, and he's usually sharing the same space as Jada. Jada literally looks like a Disney villain every time a camera is pointed at her face, like she knows where the king's missing daughter is, but she's not gonna tell anyone until she gets that crown. Before releasing a tell-all book revealing even more dirty secrets, she just took the hamper out and dumped it on the dining room table. I swear, every time this woman watches Will Smith wipe his nose, she has to do a breakfast television appearance the next day. This man may have slapped Chris Rock on live TV, sure, but that is nothing compared to the absolute mental damage that woman does to him constantly. I have never seen a woman share more about her marriage despite the absolute trash that marriage contains. She told the world that Tupac proposed to her from prison. She said she's been separated from Will for 7 years. She talks about how many times she's done it with Will Smith and just so much more. That poor man. Number 9, Kendall Jenner. Members of the Kardashian family will make a few appearances on this list. Kendall has been called out for using Photoshop in one of her photos online a few times, but there was just the most obvious Photoshop fail of all time after she posted a photo of herself in a bikini where she appears to be turning into a werewolf. Her fingers on her right hand are melting down into a straight line, making it look like she's morphing before our very eyes. Her sister Kim called her out on social media for the flub, and so did the rest of the internet, but there are plenty of examples of Kardashians being caught in a lie or indulging in a moment. But the best part of this entire thing was that she doubled down by posting a photo of her normal hands slumped down so that people could see the difference. On top of that flub, she was also humiliated further when a clip from that show, The Kardashians, showed Kendall attempting to chop some cucumbers, and she clearly doesn't know how to do it. Like someone's been making her cucumbers since she was 3. Number 8, Zac Efron. Zac rose to fame as as a Disney darling, playing the lead role of Troy Bolton in High School Musical. Since his Disney days, Zac has lent his voice and face to several projects, but the red carpet event that kinda tainted his image for the animated Dr. Seuss movie The Lorax. Zac, who voiced the main character of the movie, was walking the red carpet when he suddenly handed his assistant something from his pocket. As he handed them the product, something fell out of his pocket and onto the ground. And that something is a word that I'm not allowed to say online, so let's call them love tubes. Zac's love tube wrapper was flat on the red carpet right there for the world to see. He quickly picked it up, but the damage had already been done. In the first interview following the incident, the interviewer asked Zac if anything unplanned had happened during his walk. He then explained that it was a complete accident, there was no pre-show pocket check that could have prevented it. Well, Illumination didn't like that excuse, and they didn't seem to like their main star being associated with such adult projects, so when that Lorax sequel came out, they were planning to replace Zac with another actor. But I guess whoever they picked wasn't famous enough because that project got canned, and Zac found work in Baywatch. Good for you, buddy. Number 7, Chris Evans. As many of us know, double checking your work is important, especially when the destination is the public. Now, this was a lesson that Chris Evans, aka Captain America himself, had to learn the hard way. A little while back, Chris posted a screen video to his Instagram, but forgot to actually crop the video out. So, as it finished, fans were greeted to a brief glimpse of Chris's Long John Silver. The video was quickly taken down by all accounts. This seems like something that he did not want to post online. He was quiet for a bit, but even his Marvel co-star started throwing him a roaster too. Mark Ruffalo tweeted that since Donald Trump was in office at the time, that there was nothing that Chris could do to embarrass himself. Chris only acknowledged the incident in a brief post a few weeks later, telling people that now that he had their attention, they should go vote on November 3rd. That's one way to get the word of mouth going, Hey, Chris Evans just showed me his dingling. Vote Biden! Of all the humiliating moments on this list, this should have been one of the bigger ones, but Chris received little to no flack for the accident. Even Marvel didn't care, and they care about everything. Number 6, Elon Musk. Elon is one of the most important men in the world, being the CEO of not only Tesla, but Twitter, aka X. A few years ago, Elon revealed a new design for an electric truck that looked sleek and metallic called the Cybertruck. The demonstration took place in front of a massive crowd where Elon revealed the truck, and he confidently told them that his truck was incredibly strong, nearly impossible to break the windows or damage the structural integrity in any way, shape, or form. So a massive metal ball was tossed at its windows, and guess what? It broke. The ball kinda stayed there for a second before revealing a massive hole, but as Elon said, it didn't go through the windows, so that's a bonus. The audience found this amusing, and Elon laughed the whole thing off, but following the event, he discovered the incident was to blame on the order in which it was tested. During the tests before the presentation, a sledgehammer was swung at its doors and seemed to hold up pretty well. However, the hammer hit the truck in a sweet spot because a small little crack formed in the corner of the window. When the demo took place, the force made the crack massive and it just broke. It's nice to know what happened, but it doesn't change the fact that his near indestructible truck couldn't even handle a sledgehammer swing. Come on, bro, it's lame. Number 5, Kendall Jenner. Again! Sponsored brand deals can mean a lot of money for the people involved. Just look at every cologne on the planet. They hire someone to stand on a beach for 30 seconds and they make $1 million. Around 2017, Kendall decided to partner with the soda brand Pepsi to create a commercial that would act as both an ad and a PSA against hatred. The commercial consisted of hundreds of people from different parts of the world drinking Pepsi, and eventually everyone comes together on the streets of what appears to be New York. Kendall looks to the crowd, wipes off her makeup, and follows suit. The cringy moment comes when the crowd of people appear to be at a standoff with the police, and Kendall walks through them and just hands an officer a can of Pepsi. He sips it, crowd cheers, they swarm the cops who are suddenly cool with everything that's going on. Life's great. This ad was meant to be a political statement following the passing of several African American men and women in the United States, aiming to bring people together, which it did, but for the wrong reasons. The world collectively just cringed at this absolute mess, forcing Kendall to drop an apology video on that season's premiere of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. She may have apologized, but we will never forget the weirdest commercial of all time. Number 4, Milli Vanilli. In 1989, the duo of Fab Morvan and Rob Pilatus were on the top of the world. A fairly unknown crew had quickly rise to number 2 on the Billboard 100 list. They began performing their hit song in front of thousands of fans across the world, and people were hooked until very shortly into their rise to fame, they were performing in front of 80,000 people at a a theme park in Bristol, Connecticut. They took the stage with their well-known dance moves and started singing, but when the chorus came in, it stayed. It repeated over and over again on a busted loop. The track that they had been lip-syncing to was trash, and the truth had been revealed. Not only did they not sing a single note of their hit song, Girl You Know It's True, but the song itself was actually stolen from another group a few years prior. Milli Vanilli were a disgrace, and what was worse is that only a few days before they were exposed to the world, they had won an award for the tune and they had to give it back. Ow! Number 3, Ellen DeGeneres. When Dakota Johnson was a guest on the Ellen DeGeneres Show in 2019, she took a very subtle and pulled back approach to addressing an issue with the host. Ellen asked Johnson when her birthday was and then claimed that she had never received an invitation for the party. The 50 Shades star quickly smiled, revealed that she actually had in fact extended that invitation, but apparently Ellen did not reply. Ellen was baffled and asked Dakota if she was sure. There was no possible way, right? And Dakota said, ask literally anyone here, specifically your producer Jonathan. Following the comment, Ellen is just searching the room for Jonathan with an angry expression on her face, which is understandable because she got outed as a liar on her own show. Unfortunately for Ellen, that wouldn't be the last time, as a couple months later, a lot of stories and tweets and rumors started circulating about Ellen mistreating her staff, and eventually the show got canceled. So looks like Dakota delivered 50 Shades of oops. That sucks. Number 2, Justin Bieber. In 2015, Justin was performing on the Today Show, debuting his new song, What Do You Mean? During his performance, he got super excited and started dancing and singing his track, you know, as one does. But moments later, he got caught on air dissing the camera operator, saying that he might as well not dance since they don't even move an inch. He said next time he won't dance because it's just a waste of effort, and he was visibly annoyed as he ended his time on the show. Fans from Justin were quick to question his aggression in the moment. Before being cut off by the commercial break, Justin started to rant about what he even does this for, and if they're just gonna ignore him and cut him off, then what's the point? Not long after this on-air mishap, Justin announced that he was taking a break from music. The two seem to be unrelated, but you never know. Embarrassment's a pretty big deal. Maybe he had some real regrets when it comes to scolding the cameraman that did nothing to you before that, and out of all the mistreatment scandals surrounding Justin Bieber, this one is honestly just the silliest and pretty embarrassing. When Justin appeared on the set of CSI, he actually upset an entire crew with his behavior, according to several people who were on that show. Justin put his fist through a cake that was on the craft service table. He dismissed the claims as baseless, but a lot of people saw him do that, so just go into your room and be quiet, Justin. Just be quiet. Number 1, Tom Cruise. Matt Lauer is not just a terrible man who turned out to be a creepy. He was once a popular talk show host in the early 2000s. During an interview with Tom Cruise in 2005, the topic of scientific beliefs came up that quickly sent Tom into a rant about psychiatry. Somehow the topic got into Ritalian and pseudosciences. I don't know, Tom yelled at Matt about knowing more stuff about him, like he had some inside information that he was secretly a therapist. If someone gave Tom Cruise a therapy license, quit your job. The interview came at the height of Tom's very public descent into chaotic badness, becoming very famous for his outlandish beliefs and his wish to push them onto other people. The highlight of this interview, though, comes when Cruise was asked about his previous criticism of Brooke Shields, who took anti-sad time pills, to which he responded by calling her a glib. I looked up the definition. That means fluent and voluble, but insecure and shallow. That's not insulting. This was only one of several interviews from 2005 that I could discuss today. We could talk about Katie Holmes on Oprah. We could talk about him on a breakfast morning. We could talk about him waking up in the morning and brushing his teeth. This guy is terrible.
Number 10, Brendan Fraser. Canadian treasure Brendan Fraser got his big break after auditioning for a film in his early 20s as a way to make some money before going off to college. And he never made it to school. Instead, he was picked up by an agent launching his career. Brendan appeared in several blockbuster hits between 1990 and 2015, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Mummy, and of course, my personal favorite, Looney Tunes Back in Action. This is a great movie. It's so unhinged. They really got to give it more, it needs to be in theaters again. Suddenly, around the mid-2010s, Brendan appeared to vanish from Hollywood entirely and only appeared in small roles in indie flicks or on TV shows, like when he played Robot Man in DC's Doom Patrol. As we now know, Brendan's seclusion was the result of poor mental health following an altercation with the former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press, Philip Burke, in which Burke touched Brendan inappropriately and without consent. This, on top of a lengthy divorce, left Brendan penniless and depressed. Thankfully, though, this story does have a happy ending, as not only did he begin speaking out publicly about his experience, but thanks to his success and acceptance from the world, he was asked to audition for the role of Charlie in the Oscar-nominated movie The Whale, where he won an award award for Best Actor in a Leading Role. I actually just saw that movie not long ago, and I think he deserved that Oscar 100%. Here's hoping that this is just the beginning of the next chapter in his Hollywood career, and that he'll make some of that money back. Number 9, Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's been scaring kids and yelling about cookies since the late 1980s, starring in multiple critically acclaimed films like Beetlejuice, Hunt for Red October, and Glengarry Glen Ross. Now, over the past couple of years, Alec has been working on a little movie called Rust that hasn't been able to reveal a lot about its plot because of the situation surrounding Alec and one of its cinematographers, Helena Hutchins, because her life was accidentally taken from her after a prop pew-pew was used on set by Alec that contained live rounds instead of blanks like most props do. After a lengthy court battle, it was determined that Alec and the prop master Hannah Reid would be charged with involuntary manslaughter. While the prop master pleaded guilty and accepted the charges, Alec fought back and was in a highly expensive and lengthy court battle that left him with just under $3 million. That means he's poor for some reason. Thankfully for him, the court recently informed him that the charges were going to be dropped, and the situation prompted a discourse on occupational safety in the film industry and the treatment of its employees and the use of real fire pew-pews as props on set. He is being sued again, but that's only going to put him further into the hole that he's already in. Number 8, Nicolas Cage. Nick is just one of those celebrities that you can't put your finger on. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he actually a vampire? Probably. The answer to these questions will be debated until the end of time. At one point in his career, the answer seemed to be he's good, as in 2009 alone, he made over $40 million, starring in the crime drama Bad Lieutenant and the hit sci-fi thriller Knowing, alongside Rose Byrne and Liam Hemsworth. Nick's tale of woe is self-inflicted, as this man took every penny he made and used it for fun stuff. He bought horses, mansions, cars, even rare historical artifacts that surprisingly don't include the Declaration of Independence, because that would be too on the nose. Unless he stole it and didn't tell anybody about it, because that would make sense. By the end of the 2000s, Nick saw no money in his pocket, and he was forced to sell several of his shiny new things that he had just purchased, and he actually owes the IRS over $6 million. His career is still going strong and has even begun to take a tick upward. The critical success of the new dark comedy Renfield, in which he plays the Prince of Darkness himself, Dracula, not to mention the 10 other movies that are coming out this year. But despite that work, he has taken a significant pay decrease, and he has remained in the red this day. Number 7, Loni Willison. Loni was a model in the early 2000s, appearing on the cover of several health and fitness magazines like Glam Fit, Flavor, and Iron Man, not the movie. In 2018, she was spotted living on the streets of LA after years of being hidden from the public eye following her divorced former Baywatch star, Jeremy Jackson. Loni alleges that an altercation took place one night when they had been indulging in some adult beverages, in which Jackson attempted to lay his hands on Loni. The violent altercation left her shaken and in need of somewhere to go. Unfortunately, the divorce from Jackson left her with basically nothing, which seems to have forced her to live on the streets and scrounge for food. Recent photos show Loni with bruises on her hands from rummaging all day, and she is unrecognizable in her attire. Thankfully, some justice was delivered when Jackson was kicked off of Celebrity Big Brother for exposing a fellow housemate's bare chest to the cameras. Subsequently, he was cancelled by the entirety of the UK and is out of work for the rest of his life. Here is hoping that this gives Loni the hope to break out of her situation and return to that glam fit status. Number 6, Mel B. Spice up your life and check out this next entry. Mel B is just one of the 5 women responsible for creating some of the most iconic pop songs of all time that we still love to dance to the moment they come on our speakers. The Spice Girls were a popular singing group from the UK formed in the early 90s, and they quickly rose to fame with hits like Wannabe, Spice Up Your Life, and Say You'll Be There. You would think with all of that fame, there would certainly come fortune, right? Well, we've got one word for you: divorce. She accumulated a massive net worth during her time with the crew. Unfortunately, the majority of that cash vanished when she was married to film producer Stephen Belafonte from 2007 to 2017. Final blow came when Mel officially cracked and filed for a divorce, and in court her husband blamed Mel for the financial loss due to her extravagant and affluent lifestyle. Hey man, she's a Spice Girl. She's allowed to spend her money however she wants. Get back behind your desk and zip it. Her Spice Girl earnings originally sat around $50 million million, but currently she's sitting closer to 6. It's still a lot of money, but it's certainly not what it could be and honestly should be. Number 5, Billy Joel. He sung us a song as the Piano Man and his brother stole all of his cash. Billy Joel is a world famous musician behind some songs that are considered to be the greatest of all time. With hits like We Didn't Start the Fire and Piano Man, he has surely serenaded your heart over and over again, but despite his massive success, Billy's financial woes have been vast for a majority of his career. He's been forced to file for bankruptcy over 3 times throughout his life. While early on the issue stemmed from multiple messy divorces in which his personal funds were just essentially vacuumed away from him, his brother-in-law mismanaged his funds and stole money from Joel. All said and done, he ended up owing $9 million in fees and payments that resulted in him being forced to go on a world tour. Okay, he was forced to travel the world and sing for his fans. That sounds awful. Take my money. Number 4, Mike Tyson. In 1997, Mike Tyson stepped into the ring with fellow heavyweight boxer Evander Holyfield. Two partook in a legendary battle that left Holyfield the champion and missing a part of his ear. That's because Mike had bitten it off in the middle of the fight completely out of nowhere. This was the first of many times that Mike would make headlines as his antics outside of the ring began to overshadow his skills as a fighter. Mike is just another man who made millions and wasted all of it having a good time really fast. At one point his net worth was like $400 million, but he spent it all because he struggled with impulse control issues and spent his money on whatever caught his eye, including a gold chain for which he spent $173,000 on it in Las Vegas. His spending habits eventually left him with $23 million in credit card debt and taxes, forcing him to file for bankruptcy. Eventually he was able to scrape together some cash, and now he sits at a comfortable $10 million, which for some reason classifies him as poor, but hey, give me some of that money, man. Number 3, Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay is a jack of all trades. She acts, sings, dances, writes, and she's even the queen of her own business empire. Despite all this though, the former Disney star and Hollywood bad girl has a net worth of around $500,000. Why? Well, apparently she loves to take nice, long vacations. Constantly. Lohan was almost forced to declare bankruptcy a few years ago. As we all know, she fell out of the mainstream and started a very public battle with substance control. This left Lindsay in the low 6-figure range, which somehow again makes her poor. Like, hey man, I barely have $5 on a good day. Eventually she entered rehabilitation and kicked her bad habits right into oncoming traffic, and it wasn't until she posed for Playboy and opened up about her life on Oprah Winfrey's talk show that her finances started to stabilize and her career is slowly on the rise again. Here is hoping that a Freaky Friday sequel is on its way. Number 2, Kanye West. Kanye is our go-to guy when it comes to controversial, universally despised celebrities and now poor people. Before 2020, Kanye was on the rise and he became a full-fledged billionaire thanks to his multiple businesses and successful music career. But things quickly took a turn for the worst when he basically had a mental breakdown on Twitter. He posted a series of homophobic and racially fueled tweets aimed at several orientations and races that left Kanye beyond broke. He was dropped by all clothing and shoe brands that carried his products like The Gap, Balenciaga, and of course Adidas, the heaviest of the blows. This combined with his production company putting a pause on any musical projects that he may have been undertaking caused him to go from being in the billions to the low 100,000s in one single tweet. And of course, taking the top spot, number 1, Donald Trump. The former president and human trash bag, Donald Trump, was recently returned to the news cycle in the best way possible because a little while back, following a long and strenuous investigation, it was revealed that Donnie was guilty of 37 counts of falsifying business documents and paying off his enemies to keep silent about his misdeeds. He paid Stormy Daniels to stay quiet about an affair, he paid off lawyers, reporters, so many people, getting so much money from a man who was once considered to be the wealthiest real estate mogul in the entire United States. Well, Donnie didn't have a never-ending supply of cash and has officially gone bankrupt due to the court proceedings and fees that he is surely facing at the moment. Now, while it's not official just yet, Don has been teetering between broke and well off since he was kicked out of the office. Hey, good luck in prison, Donnie. Invest in a cup of soup. It's a really hot commodity in there. Number 10, Cindy Crawford. Model and actress Cindy Crawford has called Oprah out over their 1986 interview that took place on her show, where Oprah asked the then 20-year-old to expose herself to the crowd. Crawford reflected on the interview in a new documentary called The Supermodels on Apple TV+. Everyone has a plus now. The documentary spotlights the career of several
several models like Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, and of course Cindy Crawford. In a clip from the documentary, Winfrey is heard introducing the then aspiring supermodel to the Oprah Winfrey Show before she asked, "Hey, did she always have this body? This is unbelievable. Stand up." Now that's what I call a body. She's visibly just uncomfortable and sheepishly stands up before the studio audience cheers as she shows off her figure. According to Cindy, she felt like a child in that moment being told what to do by a superior. She felt that the moment was more of a "show us why you're worthy of being here" type thing. At the time, this was just some weird thing that Oprah asked her to do, but it morphed and mutated into one of the most uncomfortable moments of her early years in modeling. The most shocking thing for her was the fact that this was Oprah Winfrey trying to tell her what to do. The woman known for kindness and generosity and cars made her feel like a puppet. Number 9. Jason Momoa. Aquaman, the enemy of Dom Toretto, and now a man speaking out on Oprah Winfrey and Maui. Jason Momoa is a gifted actor, and by all accounts he is a gifted person as well. Recently, several news outlets have claimed that Jason is on the opposing side of this whole Maui fun thing. If you don't know what that's about, go check out some of our previous videos about Oprah Winfrey where we do it in, deeper dive. According to these outlets, Jason posted a video to Instagram in which he addresses the fires and offers his own support to the victims while never actually mentioning anyone by name. He does mention that some may use this as a way to exploit or make profit, but that was not his intentions. The clip went viral, and as you can guess, outlets were interpreting everything that they could out of it, with the biggest headline being "Jason Momoa calls out Oprah for wildfires." While not completely inaccurate, the general consensus is that there is actually no bad, juju between these people. Jason has yet to specify who would profit from this, but since the backlash, he's been posting videos on a regular basis, updating people on the situation and his position in assisting so far. Of course, he's already donated lots of money to the island and has teamed up with Dwayne Johnson to do public functions and collaborations and raise awareness, so that's great considering where it spawned from. Number 8. Dwayne Johnson. Now, when it comes to the whole Maui fun situation, there is one person who is usually left out of the conversation, and that is Dwayne Johnson. Johnson is of course one of the most bankable men in Hollywood, starring in like a million franchises, mostly in the jungle. He decided to partner with Oprah Winfrey to create the People Fund of Maui, donated $5 million of his own money to match Oprah's donation. The Rock received a large amount of criticism, but not nearly as much as Oprah did. The main reason being is that The Rock actually has a significantly smaller net worth, and the money that he donated was actually his own money. He's still only a millionaire, everyone. He's just as poor as the rest of us. Thousands of his followers have defended him rather than passing judgment because, hey, $5 million is a ton of money, and it's gonna make a lot of people's lives that much easier. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of information regarding his position towards Oprah, but the comments on their posts have been turned off, and the People's Fund of Maui has raised a lot of money since, so at least something good's coming from all the negativity. Number 7. Tom Hanks. Rumors have been circulating online that Tom Hanks may have received some inside information about the Maui wildfires that pertain to Oprah Winfrey. Now, a ton of videos have been published online in the last couple months claiming that Oprah orchestrated the Maui wildfires and hired a private team of firefighters to make it look more real. According to several media outlets, Tom was made aware of a secret plot because, he's so close to Oprah. The two have been known to share the occasional night out and some pasta. Well, it turns out that these were in fact rumors created by an AI. Someone told the computer to write a story about Tom Hanks and Oprah, and it came up with "Oprah sets Maui on fire." So that should tell you how good AI is. While a catching thumbnail and surely a fun bit of information, the reality is that Tom has no idea what's going on. When asked about his position on the Maui Fund, he had nothing but positive things to say and is actually a little disappointed with the reaction from the world. When America's dad tells you he's disappointed in you, that's just an extra level of hurt. Number 6. Oprah Winfrey herself. Oprah is taking one of the bigger spots on this list because she has been trying to warn us about herself since day one. Her talk show is all about bringing the most vulnerable people on and getting views. She's brought violence victims, health experts, fake psychologists, and even convicted felons onto her program, all for the sake of making a few bucks. As the years went by, her style was adapted by more and more studios, creating shows like Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz, who were both equally as controversial. Not to mention a few years ago when she wrote a book detailing her life and rise to the top, she revealed some truly dark things about her home life. Again, covered that in detail in a different video. She herself was considered to be a tyrant by her family, but it seems that whatever negative juju was in that house rubbed off on her forever. Now, there are actually a pretty limited number of celebrities who warned us about Oprah, because overall most stories are fake that are out there in the world. So let's talk about some lives that have been destroyed by Oprah Winfrey when they actually did go on her show for real. Number 5, a fabricated memoir. Oprah launched her book club in 1996, a reading encouraging segment from her talk show that turned any book that she chose into a bestseller. In September of 2005, she picked A Million Little Pieces, a brutal and painful memoir by James Frett about his years-long struggle with substance control issues. A Million Little Pieces became the best-selling non-fiction book of the year, and Frey was asked to appear on her talk show to discuss the book that Oprah called gut-wrenching. However, the following year, a news outlet ran a very expositive article about Frey after it was discovered that he made up or juiced large portions of his memoir. For example, there is a section of the book that tells the story of Frey surviving a fatal train crash that took the lives of 2 teenagers. He was never on that train, nor did he have any involvement with that situation. Weeks after the article broke, Oprah asked Frey to return to the show, where he faced livid viewers and an even more livid Oprah. She told James that she felt duped and betrayed, and that feeling was shared by her audience and millions of people who read that book. She asked why James felt the need to lie to herself and the readers, and he tried everything, making every excuse that he could think of. He claimed that he altered a lot of the details, but that the overall plot was real. The studio audience responded with a massive wave of boos, gasps, and groans. Winfrey later apologized for the mistreatment from her audience, as it was not her intention, but the damage was already done and his career as a writer is currently non-existent. Number 4, Harry and Meghan. Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have appeared in the public eye more and more in the past few years. After leaving the duties of their royal family to live on their own, they decided to capitalize on their so-called fame by releasing a series of different medias, books, podcasts, documentaries, and in 2021 they sat down with Oprah Winfrey to air out every piece of dirty laundry that was left in their hamper. Of course, the royal family does not appreciate these secrets being shared with, the world, so not only was Harry blacklisted by them, but the interview kind of soiled the royals' reputation as good people. According to fans of Oprah, the interview made the couple look more villainous than they surely intended. Following the interview, their public image was slightly tainted, and with more media coming out, it just made the situation even worse. Meghan got a podcast and couldn't keep up with material for the first year. They made a documentary that people just don't like, so who knows what they'll get up to next. It certainly will not be anything good. Number 3, Lance Armstrong. 7-time Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong has gone down in history as a man who is unable to ride a bike without using some chemical training wheels. In an interview with Oprah from 2013, Lance was brought on to discuss the allegations floating around regarding his status as a Tour de France winner. Several sources claimed that Lance had to take performance-enhancing substances to win each race, as well as a type of transfusion involving the red life juice that flows inside of all of us. Armstrong went on air and fessed up to every single thing that had been claimed about him, except he did deny the notion that he was some kind of a mastermind who was controlling his teammates and forcing them to join in his extracurricular activities. But amidst his admission of guilt, say that 10 times fast, there was a moment where he tried to pin the situation on his battle with cancer. He wraps it up by saying that he should have tried harder to cancel the culture rather than create more of a problem. He was stripped of all 7 Tour de France titles and has since lived in exile among the cycling world and honestly just the world in general. Number 2, where's the beef? In spring 1996, the United Kingdom apparently experienced an outbreak of bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or mad cow disease, since I can't pronounce that last word properly. According to the FDA, the disease destroys cows' central nervous systems, and if humans eat the infected meat, you get zombies! No, but they can contract a deadly variant called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. During the mad cow scare, the Oprah Winfrey Show booked Howard Lyman. The former cattle rancher had adopted a vegetarian lifestyle and went to work for the Humane Society's Eating with Co-Science animal welfare campaign, and he appeared on the show to discuss the threat of mad cows to America. He pointed out that feeding the remains of mad cow to infected cattle or other animals could have facilitated the spread, and that such practices were actually pretty common in the US. Oprah was stunned and vowed that she would never eat a burger ever again. It turns out her influence and her millions of viewers were so large that only a few hours after the episode aired, and she declared to never eat a hamburger again, the price of beef plummeted, staying at an all-time low. Like anyone who had stocks in the beef industry just not good. One Texas rancher lost an estimated $6.7 million and organized a class action lawsuit against Oprah and her show for talking trash about American beef. After a 6-week trial, she won, leaving someone with no farm and out thousands of extra dollars in legal fees. And at number 1, Tom Cruise. Despite this man being in Mission Impossible, he has been in a lot of movies produced by Tom Cruise. You didn't think Hollywood forgot about the Oprah show, did ya? They didn't. Following the announcement that he was engaged to Katie Holmes in the early 2000s, Tom appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show that has gone down in history as one of the most chaotic TV moments of all time. From the moment he steps on stage, things are just going wrong. He throws his arms out in the air, he rubs Oprah's shoulder like she's a genie or she's got a stain that just won't come out. Tom jumped on her couch, grabbed her hands, and she couldn't even get a question out. Eventually, Oprah was like, alright, whatever, just bring Katie Holmes out, and the cameras followed Tom as he ran around the studio trying to get her. Like he was the nature guy running through a jungle like Steve Irwin back in the day. The moment cemented Tom as a man with many hidden personalities, and while it has not affected his work as an actor, ever since that day, whenever he's brought in for press of any kind, all entrances and exits must be locked just to be safe. Now that didn't happen, but again, this guy might be in movies, but he's rarely in anything new that he didn't make. So
at number 10, we have how she felt about Desperate Housewives. While she enjoyed working on the set and had a great time with the cast and crew, it dominated her career, and she wanted to be known for something other than Desperate Housewives. In a nutshell, the show was about how one of the housewives who passed saw her friends, saw the world, and saw her personal experiences. But over the span of the 15 years the show took place, they gradually learn about the dark and hidden things about the other women, and what they are hiding behind their white picket fences. The show had 8 seasons in total, and won many awards and accolades, and Felicity even won an award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. So why would she want to break away from all that? Well, after the success of the show, she had a hard time landing roles that matched the success of the show. She has many IMDb credits, but all of them were either small roles or not blockbuster hits, which had to have put a dent in her confidence. This brings us to the next point. At number 9, we have how she's overshadowed by her husband. She dated and is now married to William H. Macy, and they have 2 daughters together. But with his decades of success, his most notable role being in Shameless, it's safe to say that people would recognize him first if they're out in public together. 15 years is a long time to be with someone, especially when it comes to Hollywood. He even helped her land some of the roles in some of the movies he was in as well, which led them to both earn their stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2012. It's good for them that they can actively work together, and it's important to be supportive of one another. But there is a definite success gap between the two of them, married or not. It could be the fact that Felicity was just never cut out for bigger roles, but as long as she is happy with where her career has gotten her, that's what counts. At number 8, we have how she's a Nepo baby. Now, it wasn't that she was born into a famous family, but she was born into a wealthy family, with her presumed father being a partner at Morgan Stanley. One of her grandfathers was the founder of the Peter Cartridge Company, a Baptist minister and an author, and her great-grandfather was a St. Louis businessman. Because of the family wealth, she attended a private school along with her 6 other siblings, and attended a New York university and an art school in London. This is what led her to have a stage career before reaching the big screen, but we'll get more into that later. While she hasn't directly been labeled a Nepo baby, she insists her success came from her auditions and her natural acting talent, rather than the fact that her parents paid for her to have such a prestigious acting education. At number 7, we have how she started as a stage performer. As I mentioned before, she did study acting and began acting in theater, as a lot of actors do. She's acted in 17 different stage productions, with most of them actually being in New York. She also continued to star in stage productions up until 2015, while taking breaks in between to star on screen. She hasn't said anything about her progression from theater to television, so we don't have a good inside look at how she managed the transition or how she handled it. But with her having numerous lead roles, it's safe to say that her stage acting paid off enough for her to become a television actor, even if they were only small roles in small movies. At number 6, we have her trying to be a parent. It's not easy to be a parent, and it makes it even harder when both you and your husband are regularly working individuals whose entire livelihood is based on landing roles. In the year 2000, she had her first daughter, and in 2002, they welcomed their second daughter. However, when Sophia, her eldest, was born, torn, she felt like she wasn't fit for motherhood, and that she just kept making mistake after mistake while being sleep deprived. She starred in Door to Door in 2002 and has been acting regularly since then, starring in Christmas with the Cranks, Transamerica, Raising Helen, and Phoebe's Wonderland, to name some of the bigger ones. This couldn't have been easy with 2 young daughters at home. While acting seems to run in the family, considering one of her daughters is currently in school for acting, but it wasn't always sunshine. This brings me to the next point. At number 5, we have how she didn't want to be a bad mother. No parent wants to hear that they failed or that they didn't do enough, or their actions caused their child to grow up the way they did. So because of this, both Felicity and William tried to raise their girls out of the media's eye, which is what we know is probably for the best, considering some children of famous people who grow up being famous are a little out of touch with reality. William said in an interview that when Felicity found out she was pregnant, she tried to gain all the knowledge she could about parenting through books, and would read stacks of different parenting books in order to do her best as a mother. Their oldest daughter, Sophia, wanted to follow in her parents' footsteps, and is becoming an actress herself, but not without a hand lent by her mother, which I'll get into later. Both Felicity and William are super supportive of her and say that she's a talented actress. So we hope that success will come her way when she graduates from college, even if her entry was paved smoother than others. At number 4, we have how she didn't win an award for American Crime. For some background knowledge, American Crime is a crime drama TV show that had 3 seasons, with Felicity being one of the lead roles in all 3 seasons. The main cast play a different role each season, but are ultimately all connected together, centered around the crime of the season. Well, the show was a hit, with the first 2 seasons scoring 95% in Rotten Tomatoes, and the 3rd season scoring a whopping 100%. The first season was nominated for 27 awards, the 2nd season was nominated for 11 awards, and the 3rd season was nominated for 2 awards. She alone was nominated for 8 of those awards, but she didn't win a solo award. And the entire main cast won a Satellite Award for being the best television ensemble cast. So you can bet she was a little upset at the fact that she was constantly nominated, but never quite good enough to win. At number 3, we have Transamerica. The movie received well with critics, but was a lot to take in for some fans. It's got a very long and complicated plotline that makes no sense in some places. And one of the places that left some fans disappointed was that Felicity played a trans female character. It was also widely disregarded because it was released in 2005, and people weren't nearly as open to the movie concept as they would be now. But people thought that Felicity's character should have been played by an actual trans woman who would have had a more genuine understanding of the character, and what the character goes through throughout the movie. The movie was originally created for a film festival, so it never saw theaters, and it was rated a 6.8 out of 10, according to 145 people. However, she did win a Golden Globe for her performance, and critics thought it was a great movie, considering it won 12 awards at a few different awards ceremonies. But with how fast the world changes and how quickly Hollywood's gaze changes, it's still overlooked. At number 2, we have how she is practically invisible in today's world. While she had a steady career, her name is only known because of the scandal she participated in a few years ago. Even if she won a handful of awards, she was never in anything monumental enough to be acknowledged by the modern world, or to be remembered as an important character of film history. While being married to a famous actor as well helps with her relevance, it's not working as well as some may think. She has gone back to stage acting, which isn't nearly widely appreciated as acting on screen, so she's going backward rather than forward in her career. But at least she's still trying, right? This proves that even if your star is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you aren't always relevant to Hollywood. And last but not least, at number 1, we have the Varsity Blues scandal. The point most of you have been waiting for, since she just came forward and talked about it for the first time since it happened. And there have been a lot of different reactions. The Sparks Note version of what happened is her daughter Sophia, the one I mentioned before who's in school for acting. Well, her practice SAT scores were subpar, so Felicity paid someone $15,000 to improve her score enough for her to be accepted into the college she's still attending. Felicity claimed she had no choice but to break the law for her daughter to pursue her dream. And she wasn't the only one who was caught during the scandal. Rich parents have been doing it for years, but the fact that she claimed she saw no other option for her daughter if she didn't, and how she wanted her to have a chance at a future, as if she couldn't study harder or work harder like most American students. She even went as far to say that when the FBI entered her mansion and woke up her and her daughters, she thought it was a joke until she was put in handcuffs. She was in jail for 11 days before being released. This just proves how far famous parents will go to make sure their child comes out on top, which we have seen a lot in celebrities.
Number 10, Nick Cage. One of the most unhinged men in Hollywood history. One of the few people who somehow managed to star in billions of movies, but he's barely been able to keep a cent of it. During a press junket in 1990, Nick Cage went on a talk show called Wogan to discuss his latest project, Wild at Heart. When the host Terry Wogan announced Nick Cage, he entered with karate kicks, a front flip, a somersault, he threw wads of cash at the audience because he's Nick frickin' Cage, and he finally sat down. Moments before the interview truly began, Nick asked if he could just take his jacket off, and he proceeded to take his jacket off and the shirt underneath it. If people thought Nick was all together, this was when they were proven wrong. Despite the content being relatively tame, the entire time you can just see the sweat glistening off his chest, cause guess what? Wearing a leather jacket without anything underneath is beyond uncomfortable. Sure, it might look cool until you take it off and you're covered in a heat rash. Nick's always been unhinged, but his behavior in the 1990s was apparent and well documented thanks to him literally being in a minimal of 2 movies a year. Number 9, Jada Pinkett Smith. Yeah, Jada snapped, but no, it's not in the grandiose, wild fashion like some of the other entries on this list will be. Jada has slowly been losing her mind as time has gone on, but she officially snapped while doing press for her new memoir, Worthy, which really should have been called Worthless. I say that because you actually don't need to own the book to know its contents. Jada decided to share those live on TV for a week straight before her book came out, and in one of those interviews, it saw her revealing that she was separated from Will Smith for 7 years despite appearing to be a strong and happy couple for so long. Jada has always been so adamant that she is a good person and that herself and Will are best friends who do anything for each other, and she also revealed a lot of stuff that I don't have the mental capacity to repeat. That is how much this woman has drained my soul. She may not have snapped in the way that many of you hoped for, and I'm sure there are already people typing in the comments that Jada's insane and I'm an idiot. Yeah, I see those. Thanks a lot for the views, guys. But this is my list, and I want to share how terrible she is as often as possible. Number 8, Bobcat Goldthwait. Alright, thank you. Bobcat may not be much of an actor these days, but in the 1980s and the 90s, this dude was dominating the film and comedy scene. His zany brand of over-the-top, high-energy performance was well received by any and all who saw him. I can still hear his voice echoing in my head whenever I think of Police Academy. In 1994, comedian Arsenio Hall invited his longtime buddy onto the talk show, which unfortunately was in its final days on air. And when he heard of the cancellation, Bobcat decided to send a message to the big brains that made that decision. He spray painted the word Paramount on the wall behind him, he threw furniture around, broke TV screens, and all the while Arsenio is just sitting back and enjoying the show. When they returned from commercial, they were sitting in ruins, and despite that, Arsenio joked, saying, "The worst part is, I have to pretend like I'm mad at this guy." Joke's on him, that wasn't the only talk show that he melted down on. A few years later after this, Bobcat set a chair on fire on the Jay Leno show, aka The Tonight Show, for no reason, just for fun. Like, he was standing there just going, "Fire!" Man, that voice is fun. Go listen to him. He was fined over $3,000 and made to replace the chair. Oh, and in case you haven't noticed, he hasn't been asked to be on a talk show ever since. Number 7, Joan Rivers. While speaking with CNN host Frederica Whitfield about her role as a fashion critique on the reality series Fashion Police, Joan didn't appreciate the questions that she was being asked. While calm at first, the host claimed that Joan's comments on the show may be considered mean or cold-hearted, but the fans wanted to hear what she had to say. Before even being able to finish that sentence, Joan clapped back saying it's not mean, claiming that she says the truth. She's just saying what the people on the couch at home are probably thinking. She called people and their style ugly. She may be cold, but her words are meant to heal and not to berate. Alright, so everyone who called me ugly in high school was just encouraging me then. The interviewer then went on to ask Joan how she felt her words were coming across to the audience on both her show and the readers of her book, which apparently featured some pretty dark content about people that Joan had no business discussing. Joan said, "If you can make something funny in life, do it. Hey, I got pages and pages of jokes about the events in New York in 2001, but I don't say them out loud because they're horrible and make people uncomfortable." It's not a great defense, Joni. The final straw came when Joan was asked about the fur coat that she was wearing on the cover of her book and the backlash that she would face from animal rights activists. Well, Joan got furious and decided to leave the interview, but not before calling out Frederica for asking such negative questions, for wearing leather shoes, and for reminding her that she made people laugh for over 50 years. Quit asking her why she did what she did and what she's wearing. She's done. And then she just walked off and was never invited to return again. Number 6, Mike Tyson. It's hard to pick just one Mike Tyson meltdown, so let's talk about a couple of them. He got his start in the world of professional boxing in the early 80s, but as the years went by, controversies came up left and right, and this is probably why he had such troubled history with interviewers. In the mid-1990s, he was speaking with a news anchor from Channel 5 News when he got annoyed at the line of questioning, suggesting that his recent 6-month hiatus may threaten his ability to box. Mike said, "F you," and a few other things that I just can't quote, but that wasn't even close to the level of fury that this man is capable of. During another press tour for his latest bout in the early 2000s, he was wrapping up an interview when he lashed out at a fan in the crowd and started hurling a slew of insults at them, calling them the British word for cancer sticks, starts with an F and it rhymes with maggot. The clip became viral overnight and placed his career even further in jeopardy than it already was, but he finally drove the nail in the coffin on CP24's Breakfast TV in 2014 after somehow maintaining enough relevance to get a one-man show. Mike was sitting down with host Nathan Downer when the interview took a hard left and went from, "So, what's the show about?" to, "So, should you even be allowed on stage, you monster?" That's not actually what he said, but that's what Mike heard. He stopped answering the questions honestly and instead just started responding with sarcastic insults, more F-words, and several threats to the anchor. Seriously, whoever keeps letting that guy go on camera, just take him away, put him in a different room. Number 5, Crispin Glover. Crispin may not be a very active member in Hollywood these days, but he has most certainly been in some of your favorite top 10 movies, being featured in stuff like Charlie's Angels and Back to the Future. Crispin was always considered to be a bit of an eccentric guy, both on and off camera. In 1987, he made one of the most notorious appearances in late night history when he was a guest on the Late Night Show with David Letterman and was supposed to promote a new indie flick called River's Edge, but instead he delivered a bizarre interview without any clear reason why. Many have speculated that this is a staged bit, but no one's ever actually confirmed that story, considering how unhinged Crispin is. Maybe. From the moment Crispin is brought on set, he seems to be distressed. He wore strange clothes, including black platform shoes that made him like an extra 6 inches taller. Instead of answering questions about the project, he decided to rant about his portrayal by the media, literally pulling out press clips and quoting them on air. Remember newspapers? He claimed people thought he was weak and then challenged David to an arm wrestle before getting out of his chair, delivering a high kick in David's direction and just getting so close to his face. David giggled and then cut the interview short. Whether it was staged or not, Crispin's infamous interview will always go down in history as the moment that he snapped live on TV. Number 4, Charlie Sheen. Charlie rose to fame in the 80s after starring in a slew of cult classic flicks like Red Dawn, The Boys Next Door, and that little cameo he had in Ferris Bueller. Those are the only ones that I've seen. He fell into the mainstream, however, in 2003 when he began playing the character Charlie Harper in the hit sitcom 2.5 Men. So good that just mentioning it gets that song in your head. However, in 2009, he was arrested for attempting to harm his wife Brooke Mueller on several occasions, and at the time of his arrest, both parties had been indulging in no-no juice, with Sheen becoming enraged beyond control, according to the reports. Following this, a restraining order was placed prohibiting Sheen from being within 100 feet of both Brooke and their children, and despite all that controversy, Charlie was later seen doing press on air for an upcoming movie on the Today Show when the interviewer asked Charlie what was behind his sudden behavior, claiming that he was being perceived as this angry and wild guy, but Sheen responded with, excuse me, it's not anger, it's my passion, before launching into a no-no-snow-fueled tirade. It is a wonderful interview. He claimed that his brain functioned within a separate realm to ours, and Charlie's interview was defensive to say the least, with his energy just being weird and aggressive the entire time. Ever since then, Charlie's maintained this weird air of arrogance towards himself and still believes that he's the king of TV and winning, when in reality this is most likely the first time you've heard about him in quite a while. Number 3, Kanye West. Kanye was slowly going mad in the eyes of the public in 2010, but as the years went by, he did more and more TV appearances. It wasn't until 2018 though when his political beliefs just got him heated on live TV. On Jimmy Kimmel Live, when he asked Kanye how he felt about the response to his decree that he was all set for the president at the time, Donald T., which was largely criticized, he defended his statements by claiming that he did not have to conform to a united mindset and he was just a bit upset about the backlash, but that some of him kinda liked it. He then suggested that the world was in a simulation, claimed that it was filled with unpaid actors. This over 20-minute interview is just filled with metaphors, concept of love. He compared himself to the Son of God. This interview is just only a short time after his anti-Semitic tweets were circulating the internet. He even makes a joke about being anxious about asking his publicist to be on the show. He was fairly calm in his delivery of his opinions, but he snapped on TV, and then a couple weeks later, heck, a couple days later even, he snapped again in real life. Number 2, Tom Cruise. It's one thing to be asking people to join your church all the time, but Tom's behavior as a member of society has been rough to say the least. Following the announcement that he was engaged to Katie Holmes back in the early 2000s, Tom appeared on an episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show that has gone down in history as one of the most chaotic moments in TV history. From the moment that he walks on stage, he has such strange energy, like he's so excited, he just got the best news in his entire life. Well, it was because he was engaged. He throws his arms up in the air, he rubs Oprah's shoulder like she's a lamp and he wants to summon Robin Williams. He revealed to the audience that the excitement was from his engagement to fellow actor Katie Holmes, which is awesome, but he was trying to break Oprah. Like, he jumped on her couch, grabbed her hands over and over again. She couldn't even get questions out because he was being so chaotic. Eventually, Oprah was like, alright, just bring out Katie Holmes, and then the camera crew followed Tom through the hallways while he ran around looking for her like a paranormal activity scene or something. Tom's energy continued to stay at that level of chaos throughout his entire marriage to Katie, and since the divorce, he's still just kinda nuts. And at number 1, Will Smith. Oh, when did Will Smith have a meltdown on live TV? I'm just kidding, you guys. We all know about the Oscars. In 2022, Chris Rock was hosting the 94th annual Oscars when he decided to make a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith and her hair. Rock expressed he was just so stoked to see her in a new G.I. Jane movie. And immediately following that joke, which landed for everyone else in the audience, Rock stood in confusion because Will Smith was on his way to the stage. Will adjusted his jacket, he took a nice firm stance, and then just clocked him across the face. He winded it up too, just to get the ultimate force into that. Initially being seen as a planned joke, Will then started shouting at him to keep his wife's name out of his flippin' mouth. Chris handled the situation pretty well. He kept his cool, laughed it off, and brought the next award presenter out. He was professional and kept things going, but an hour later, Will Smith won an Oscar for Best Actor. He played Richard Williams, the father of tennis superstars Venus and Serena, and during his speech, he gave a half-hearted apology for his actions, before saying that the situation was because he was playing that character for so long and it made him feel paternal. Unfortunately for Will, slapping was enough to get him banned from the Oscars indefinitely. Not just that, but he has also been banned from Hollywood so far, as he is now being seen as an aggressive dude with no impulse control. He was fired from upcoming projects, he sits at home all day, polishing his one and only Oscar next to a single candle in a dark room.